Hey folks, it's Mr. Turbeville here. We're still working on section 2 of module 1. So much important stuff in this module. But this is kind of also a separate thing, so we're going to label it regression equations. And so how to create a regression line specifically. We're going to do this for parabolas and other things too. But these steps will be the kind of the same thing. But the section they titled this is, and it's on page 20 of the textbook. So again, I can only get this so big and still be able to work with it. If you got the page 20 in your textbook open, you can follow along, and as I point to things and say things, you can identify what they are for yourself, whether you can see them specifically on here or not. So what we got here is modeling a linear function. Okay, that means writing a equation for a line. Okay, modeling means equations. So get that's what, if you haven't figured out, there's a lot of code words that we talk about here, and I'm trying to help you out. When you see these certain words, these other words got to be coming to your head, which are that you're more familiar with. So modeling is writing an equation, a function, usually in function notation. You get the f of x thing going on, and it's a line. So now when we do this, we're going to also be doing something called the correlation coefficient, which is sitting right here. This is called the R. And if we say if you have an R value of +1, that's basically 100% accuracy. Or -1, well, that means completely wrong? No, that doesn't mean completely wrong. That just simply means that the slope is negative, but it's still basically 100%. But the line is a negative slope, where the positive one has a positive slope, so it has a positive correlation. But you're looking for 1. So 0.9 is very good. 0.99 is very good. So that's what we're kind of looking for in that area called a correlation coefficient. So as we come up with this equation, we can say, well, how good is it? How can I use this equation to predict things coming up in the future? And how much can I rely on it? That's what that thing's all about. Now, and none of this is going to show up if you don't have the certain situations, things turned on. So under mode, okay, and you can't necessarily see all that, but right here next to the second, it says mode, okay, and I'm going to pull up my little screen here and see how this flies here. So right next to the second button, it says mode. Okay, but before I do that, what you got here is on the left-hand side. This is what your calculator looks like, and this is the screen over here. And so I'm going to try it. That's about as big as I can make it. And then down here it says key press history. So I can actually show what I've done. So when I'm going to come over here where clear is, and I'm going to put this up. I sure do hope it's showing up correctly here. Clear. And I'm going to click clear. Alright, and so there you see here in history, I hit clear. I want the whole screen cleared, so I'm going to hit it again, and so I hit it twice. Now everything's cleared out, okay? Now I want to clear my history over here. Yes, I want to clear the history. So I'm starting fresh all together. Okay, so this correlation coefficient, before we get any further, we got to make sure our mode is set up correctly. So that's up here next to the second mode. So it's right here, just regular mode. If you hit second mode, that's quit, right? And so this is where you have your different settings. And as you come down where it says stat diagnostics, it's currently off. I want mine turned on. Okay, I want it to turn on. Would you please turn on? Oh, I can't click over here apparently. I got to use my arrow keys, which is what you would be doing, right? Okay, and then I come over here to on. Okay, hit enter. Okay, so I hit mode, went down, then I went right, then hit enter, and now I got stack diagnostics on. So when I do all my little fancy things we're about to do, the R value will show up, either R or R squared as it goes along. Okay, so I'm going to hit second mode now and clear and quit what we were doing. So that's what we did to make sure the mode was turned on, okay, with the R value. Now the next couple of things I want to make sure you're understanding some things is, so our key button when it comes to regression equations is going to be the stat button. So that's right up here next to alpha, next to your x, and it's a stat. Over here by your arrows, your stat button. So that's going to be your key button when it comes to what we're about to do. And then there's another one that's going to come in handy. It's going to be a big deal. And it's over here, and it's zoom. Okay? Zoom. And instead of doing zoom standard like we normally would do, we're going to zoom stat, because why? We're dealing with stat button. Okay? So that's just kind of a preview on that. But let me quit out of there. Okay? And so let's go on down to this next line here. Well, I wonder if it's going to give me a new line. We'll see. All right. So regression equation. What is a regression equation? Well, normally when we go to graph a line, they give you a y equals mx plus b kind of thing, and then you graph points, and then you play connect the dot. With any regression equations, the idea of regress means to go backwards, to regress, instead of, so when somebody says you've been growing like a weed, and then all of a sudden you get sick, you've regressed. It means you've gone backwards. You're not growing anymore. You're shrinking, you've regressed. Kind of an idea. So going backwards. So the idea of a regression equation is simply this. You're going to start with ordered pairs or a scatter plot, and then you're going to use those to come up with the equation. That's exactly backwards of what we normally do. So it's regression, going backwards, starting with the points and then coming up with the equation. So that's what a regression equation or regression model, which was code words, right? Same idea. And so let's start off by hitting the stat button. Okay, on page 20, okay, I've got my book open. Okay, I got my book open to page 20, and we got example number 2 here. We got this whole list of numbers here, and so that's a bunch of ordered pairs. So what I want to do is I'm going to take these ordered pairs and put them into my calculator. So let's do that. So how can I take those ordered pairs and put in my calculator? Well, if I had something in y equals, I could always go to my table. But I'm going to start with the table first. So how do I do that? So let's do stat. That's over here. That stat button. Okay. And I tell you what. Let's clear the whole thing out so you can again see where we're starting this whole process. Okay. Yeah. So we're starting with a clean slate. So we're going to hit the stat button. Okay. When you go to change something on a Word document, you're going to edit it, right? That means you're going to be typing into the document. You're editing the document. So of our choices here, if I want to enter stuff in, edit, calculate, calc, test. Well, I don't have anything in to calculate, and I don't know what test even means yet. And I don't like to take tests, so let's avoid tests for the moment, okay? All right, but edit, and so in the edit's really what we're looking for is the edit, and then calc, we are going to go into the calc eventually, and then the test is where you could actually find greater than and less than symbols and things like that. But we're ready to edit. We want to put in our list of numbers, okay? So I'm going to hit enter, okay, and that's where this came up. List 1, list 2, list 3, list 4, list 5, okay? If you don't have your list here, like this and all these, it means something may have happened crazy. And what you want to do is reset the calculator, and that usually gets it straight, and which would be second plus sign, which is memory, okay? And then you would hit second, okay, like I said, second plus sign, and then you would hit 7 for reset. And then 1 should get you done. Okay, 1, and then you confirm it. We clear everything out. So I'm going to start typing in my numbers. So on my chart here, I'm going to just type in all of the photos taken in list 1, And in list 2, all the photos kept. So you're not going to see it on the screen, so you need to have page 20 handy. Okay? So here we go. So I got 1, 7, enter, 1, 2, 8, enter, 1, 4, 0, enter, 1, 5, 7, enter, 1, 1, 0, enter, 1, 8, 8, enter, 1, 7, 0, enter. So that's everything on photos taken. Okay? And so I'm going to hit my right arrow, and now I'm starting over here on list 2 for photos kept. 25, enter, 31, enter, 39, enter, 52, enter, 21, enter, 25, enter. You could hit the down arrow, but enters just as easily or easier. And then 42. Okay, and as you'll notice, you got the 170 and the 42 lined up to each other. Okay, and that's important for a double check to make sure you didn't skip a number or put a number in twice. Okay, and notice it says 8. Well, there's, okay, well, if you look at the list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if this is 8, that means there's 7 up here. So that's good. We've double checked to make sure everything is working out okay. So from here, I'm going to go back over to stat. So you can either A, do second mode, which is quit, or you can hit just go back to stat. Because now I have entered in the information. I have done my editing. Okay, I have done the editing. I've entered in the information. Now I'm ready to calculate. Okay, I want to calculate my model, my equation. Okay, so I go back to stat, that button right there, and then I'm going to go to the right, which is calc. Okay, and I got several choices. Is 1 var stats, we'll do that later. That's where you do mean, median, and mode. 2 var stats, you won't really mess with that till you get to stats class. Median, not going to mess with that. But here's where we're talking about LIN, that's kind of like a line, right? REG, regression, so linear regression. And it says AX plus B, so that's kind of like MX plus B, so that should be a big deal. So this is a line, and it says quad reg, so that's a parabola. Then cubic reg, so that's a cubic. And then it goes, and it moves on up. Oh, and then it says line reg again. But notice what it does. It says A plus BX. That's really not what we usually do. So we're going to stay with the AX plus B, and we're going to either down arrow to 4, or we can just hit 4. Okay? Now, and asking us some questions. List 1, list 2. Is that what we put our stuff in? Sure is. That's where we put our stuff in. Okay? These are the default settings. If you have one of the older calculators and it doesn't show up on the screen, this will be the default settings that you're using, list 1 and list 2. Okay? And then what you would do is you would start here at the store reg if you have one of the older ones that don't have this screen on it. You still would do the same sort of thing. Okay? Now frequency list, we're going to leave it blank. So I'm going to just down arrow, and then I'm going to go to store reg. So store reg EQ. What is that? So once it has calculated the equation, where would you like for me to store the equation at? Okay? Well, and this is one of the things. Repeat after me kind of thing. Vars, Y vars, enter, 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 enter. Vars, Y vars, enter, 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 enter. Well, just keep on hitting enter until you're done. Okay? So, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to hit vars. Well, that's right next to the clear button. Vars, I forgot to mention that one other button. So vars. Okay, that opens up this guy here, and then you can hit the right arrow button to Y vars. Okay, and then we're going to hit, and this is where the enter, enter, enter comes in. So we're going to function, which is enter. I wanted to go into Y1, so under Y equals, the very first line, I'm not going to have to type it. It will type it in for me if I put this setting in place. So I'm going to hit that. Okay, enter again. Alright, so it's come up on here. So this is the vars, Y vars, enter, enter. We've already, and then we're going to enter again. Would we like it to calculate? Yes, please calculate. Okay, so now it has calculated the equation. And so if I didn't have it put it in for me, here's the deal. I just had, so you plug in this number for the A, get the arrow out of the way. So you can plug that number in for A, or the M, the slope, and there is your y-intercept. Okay? And it says our R2 is 0.719 and our R value is 0.848. So that's like 85%. Not bad, but I'd rather have something in the 90s. Okay? But it's not too bad for a predictor. Okay? Now, we hadn't talked anything about what this whole thing photos taken and how many blah, 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 blah. This is mostly just here are the steps to take a ordered pairs and come up with an equation. Now, the cool thing about this is if I now go to y equals, instead of having to figure out how to write the equation for myself from what they give me on the home screen, I can just go over here to y equals, and looky there. The whole thing's been put in, but good grief, isn't that a bunch of decimals? It sure is. So remember in Mr. Tuberville's class we said unless otherwise stated we want 3 decimals. So how could I make it do just 3 decimals? So let me go over here to mode, go back to mode, okay, and then I'm going to come down here to float, hit the down arrow, and then over to 3, right, and hit enter. And now it's going to round everything to 3 decimals, whether I need it to or not. It's always going to do it. So that's why I sometimes get extra, zeros on my screen that you may not. Okay. So is that going to be all I need to do? Now I'm going to hit second mode, which makes it go to quit because that's the blue one. Back to home screen. So does that fix it? Let's go to y equals and see. Whoops, didn't fix it, did it? I'm going to have to recalculate this. So that's okay. We're learning. It's going to be good practice for us. So how did we calculate this? Well, first of all, we go to the stat button over here next to the arrows. Okay. Go to your stat button. Okay. Edit is how we put the stuff in. Okay. And then if we go over to the right, calculate is how we do our calculations. We're doing a line, so we're going to go to number 4. Okay. And then we got list 1 and list 2, sure. And we're going to skip through all that. Okay. And then store. Okay, this is where that mantra goes. Vars, Y vars, enter, enter, enter. And well, just keep hitting enter till you're done. Okay, so vars button. And then over to Y vars. And then just simply keep on hitting enter. Enter for function. I want it in Y1. Okay, it comes back up here. Go to the next line. Calculate, yes. And see now it's made it down to 3 decimals, easier to look at. And now when I go to y equals, there it is. And so all I would need to do to write down my model now is go y equals 0.331x minus, because that's plus negative, minus 11.326. And that would be my equation. Okay? And so that would be the first thing to do. That's how you would, 1, put the information in. 2, calculate the equation. Now, 3, okay, one of the things it asks for is a prediction. Okay, a prediction. So at the end of it, it says predict the number of photos the photographer will keep if she keeps 150 photos. So basically what you can do is plug in 150 right here. Plug 150 right there. So you have a few different ways you can do that. Okay? So you either can go to your home screen, okay, right there, and you just type in 0.331, open parentheses, 150, close, minus 11.326. Okay? So this is my home screen, and I'm typing in this equation. I'm just sticking 150 right there. Okay? And I hit enter, and so it's going to predict 38.324. That's my prediction. Which is about 85% accurate. Because our R value was 0.848, I think. So that's one way you could do it. Another way you can do that is maybe we could go to my table. So now if I go second graph, that goes to my table. But good grief, how long would it take to get to 150? Well, there's two ways you can do that. Now it's getting kind of crazy and you're getting a lot of choices at this point. So before I go into the other alternatives, let me remind you, if this other stuff doesn't make too much sense to you, you can always just type it in right here. Okay, which is probably what I want to see on your paper anyway. Okay? So that's always a good option. I'm just going to show you a couple of little other tricks that as you're getting more familiar with your calculator, you'll find nice. And so if I go up here to the top where it says window, up there at the top it says in blue table set. So I'm going to hit second window and go to table set. So right now it says start at 0. What if I just had it start at 150? Type in 150. Okay, and so if I hit second table now, well, looky there. There's 150. So the calculator has plugged in 150 into my equation. And isn't that what I got just a minute ago when I put it on my calculator here? Same number, isn't it? Okay, so that's what it did. Now there's another option. So if I go back to second window, that's table set. I really don't like to start my table at 150. Sometimes I'm just going to reset that to like -2 because I like to not start, have some negatives and positives. But that's no big deal. -2, -1, 0, anything in that neighborhood is okay. Okay, but what the cool thing here is I'm going to change it from auto input or independent to ask. Okay, whoops, I got to click over here. Okay, that's not what I meant. Okay, I got you. Let's try again. I got confused by hitting the wrong buttons over here. So I'm going to hit the down button. Uh-oh. Let's go back to 2. Okay. Now I hit the down button. Alright, come over here to ask, and now I hit enter. Okay. And so from now on, when I go to my table, the table is going to be blank, and that'll be confusing if you don't know what's there. So I'm going to hit second graph and go to my table. Well, see, it's blank now. But now I can hit 150, and there it is. It plugged it in for me. Well, the cool thing about this is that I said, well, okay, if that's your prediction for 150, what's my prediction for 200? Well, I just type in 200 right here, and it's going to plug in the 200 into my equation. So I can plug in anything I want to, and I don't have to go through all of the other numbers or change my starting point. I can just put it on ask. So this is important to know because sometimes you might grab a calculator that somebody borrowed from you and they put it on ask and didn't put it back over. And so how do you fix that? So to get it back how it was, what do? We hit second window, which is table set, and just simply come back down here and put it back on auto. So down, down, and then we hit enter, and now it's back on auto. And so when you go back to your table, see, it's back over to like it normally would be. So that's how you would put in a regression equation. How about we do one of the homework problems together? Is that okay? If you think you got it from here, then you cut me off, right? But if not, let's keep going if you want to see what's going on. So if I can, how I can do with this myself. So let's, because there's one more thing that you don't know how to do as well. It's this stat. So before we go on to the next one here, I'm going to edit, go stat button. Then I'm going to hit enter for edit because I want to put different numbers in here now. So what can I do to clear this out? So I'm going to hit my left arrow. I'm going to come up here. You see that L1 is now highlighted? I'm going to hit the clear button, not the delete. Delete bad. Clear good. Okay? So we're going to hit clear. And nothing seemed to happen, but did you notice that right here disappeared? So now when I hit the down arrow, whoop, the whole thing's cleared out. So I'm going to hit the right arrow, come over here, hit the top up arrow, go up there. See how that's highlighted? And so when I hit, see, watch this. When I hit clear, all those numbers right there, poof, go away. When I come down, it finishes the job. Okay? So now I got my list clear. I'm ready to go on to one of the examples or one of the practice problems in the book. Okay? So I believe that should be sitting right here. Oh yeah, let's do some golfing. Okay, so this is on page 27, and I believe we were assigned 14, 15, and 16. So here's 15. Okay. So first thing they want you to do is plot these points on the graph. And you know what? I think you can do that by your little old self. Okay? I am going to put this information in. Now you notice here they've gotten all fancy on us. Instead of doing a line, they're going to do a quadratic. But we can handle that. No big deals. It's one button different. Okay, so if you plot all these points, it's all well and good. So let's put it into the calculator at this point. So here it is. I'm on page not on page 27. So I got to get off of this page and then on the screen so I can pull up my calculator. Okay, come back over here to my list 1. And I'm just going to simply type in these numbers. Okay, nothing fancy about it. So 0, enter. 0.5, enter. 1, enter. 1.5. Looks like it's going about 0.5, so that should make it a little bit faster. And then 2.5. Whoops, I did 2.2, so just come up here and I'm going to write 2.5 right on top of it. Come back down. Then 3, 3.5, and then 4. Okay, then come over here to the right and start over. So we got 0, 28, 48, 60, 48, 28, 0. Well, goodness gracious. I did something wrong, didn't I? These don't match up. So that's how I kind of know. Something went kind of haywire here. So we got 0, 28, 48, 60. Well, that should be 60, right? Yeah. And then, 64. I skipped 64 altogether. And then I go to 60 again. So I went from 60 to 60. That's what I did wrong. But 64. And then I got 48, 28, and 0 again. Okay? So what does that look like when you graph it? Okay? Well, I'm going to switch back over to this view here, and I'm going to slide over to the teacher's book. And let's see here. So in the teacher's book on, I guess it's, or in your book on page 21, this whole regression thing shows up here, and it kind of walks you through it, kind of. All right. So, but let's look at what this golfing thing looks like in the teacher's edition. There we go. Okay. So here is the idea. So here's your points. So these are the ones you need to be graphed, and then you can play connect the dot, and then we're going to answer these questions. Okay, we're going to answer those questions. So the first thing was to graph the data. So we got the graph done. Now it says what is the maximum height of the golf ball reaches. Okay, so what's at that top point? What is the biggest height? Right here? So what's going to go into this blank is 1.5 comma 60 or just 60? Well, it says maximum height. Let's asking for the height, or actually the function value, so it just to 60. So part B says, hey, it went up to 60. Okay? And then C, ask you about on what interval is it increasing. So from 0 up to 60, it's increasing. And then from 60 on down, it's decreasing. All right. But you know, one thing it did not ask you to do was to come up with a model. but that's okay. We're going to do it anyway. Okay, so we've already got the information in. We might as well come up with the equation, right? Might as well come up with the equation. So here we go. Let me clear out our list here. Got a lot of the history buttons here going. So again, how did we get into here? We did stat edit and we entered this information here. So now I'm going to hit second mode, which is quit. Okay, or I could just simply hit the stat button and it sets us back up into here. And so we've already done our editing. Now we're ready for calc. So I'm going to hit the right arrow. And are we doing a line this time? No, it said quad. So for all the stuff that other stuff you're doing, you're going to stay with number 4 for lines. But we're going to move into quadratics pretty quick here in the next unit or so. So it's real simple. There's only really one button difference. Now the equation is going to look slightly different, but there's only one button. So we're going to hit number 5. Okay, still list 1 and list 2. Are we still going to skip over frequency list? Yes. Okay, are we still going to do vars, y vars, enter, 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 enter? Yes, we are. So right here, we're going to go to where it says store. That means where it's going to save the information. So vars right here on the keyboard, and then right arrow to y vars, and then we just start hitting enter, enter, y1, enter. Yes, that's where we want to put it. So when we hit y equals, it'll be right there on y1. So enter again, enter. Okay, and there's the information right here. So our a value would be -16. 64 would go right here into and then c would be 0. And our r squared, notice the r to the 1 went away, is 1. So that means it's right on the money. This is a perfect equation that goes with the data that we have there. So this is a really good equation. So I could take this and write my own equation, but since I did the vars, y vars, I can just now go to y equals, and there it is. It's already set up for me. Y equals, and then there's the equation right there. And then we can do the predictions if we wanted to. So if we wanted to predict how high would the ball be, after, so we did 0.5 and then 1. What about 1.25? So we could put 1.25, 1 1/4 seconds. So 1.25 and 1.25 there. And that would give us how high the ball would be after 1 1/4 seconds. Because all we have currently is 1, 1.5, and 2. So we could figure out what's going to happen in between and that kind of thing. Okay? So that's how you do setting up a model. So let me review this one more time. So we first go to stat, and we go to edit, and we enter our data. Okay, and then we come back to stat, and we go over to calc, and then we're going to calc what other kind of regression thing we have. And so for right now, we're going to start with lines, but then we'll do on any of these later on. Okay. And then from there, once you've kind of picked what's going on with that, you would go through here, and what do you do? This would do vars, y vars. You don't even have to do that, but it sure is good to do it, and it's easy to do. And so then that would give you an equation, and then you can plug back into the equation to make predictions. Okay? That's pretty much the deal. Hope that's helpful.